So, what did you miss at Jubilee today? Well, you missed the announcement that our dear friend, member of the community, Diane Sankey, passed away very suddenly earlier in the week. And so we took a moment to grieve and to think about all that Diane has meant to us as a community, as a family. And we talked about our plans to grieve and celebrate her life in a couple of weeks, a week Tuesday actually, March 4th. He also missed the church or the chancel being very different. In fact, what we had is the stage set from a Gilbert and Sullivan production still up. It looked like we were beside a Flatiron building in the middle of a city square. And it was symbolic, I think, of how the world sometimes invades our holy space, our special private space. The world pushes in. We had a prayer today for T4 slips and tax filings because we realize there isn't always a separation between the secular and the holy, between our special reserved quiet space and the world outside. And in fact, there shouldn't be a separation. We heard the rules from Leviticus, a passage that told us that we should leave part of our field and we should not pick up all the grapes, but in fact allow those who are hungry to pick up from the field that which we leave behind. We heard the suggestion, the admonition that we should pay our workers at the end of the day and not wait until morning, a way of making sure they show up to work the next day. We heard rules that encouraged us to respect people, to offer dignity and opportunity instead of a handout, instead of judgment. And then we heard Jesus tell us that although an eye for an eye is a fine limitation, he would encourage us, in fact, to love our enemies, to give to those who would steal from us. If someone sues us, we should not contest. In fact, if someone steals our coat, we should give our cloak as well. And we talked about how the rules in Leviticus and the rules that Jesus puts forth don't really belong in the real world, that there is a massive disconnect between what Jesus suggests and what the real world provides. And we acknowledge that it would be nice if the real world were a place where we did treat each other with respect and dignity and offered opportunity instead of handout. That we imagine that our resources did not belong to us, but in fact that we are stewards of our fields and of our wealth, and that we shared with each other as equals. That would be great. But in the real world, when you try to be a nice guy, people take advantage of you. People steal from you. People hurt you. And so we aren't much for it. It's hard enough to love our family, never mind loving our enemies. After all, we call them enemies for a reason. And we talked a little bit about how many people don't want to have anything to do with the church because the church doesn't understand the real world. The church is often some fantasy land. And then we had that rare moment where our minister, me, actually sang the chorus from Royals by Lord, the 17-year-old pop singer. I sang that chorus 3 or 4 times during the sermon to point out that not everybody is happy with the way the real world works, that people want an alternative. And in fact, that's what Jesus was doing, was offering an alternative, another way of being in the world when Jesus offered us the kingdom of God. But it's not just an offer. In fact, it's an obligation for us. Just as we download new software and we have to push an I accept button at the end, even though we haven't really read all the words, the Bible's much like that. We haven't read all the words, but we have pushed an accept button. We pushed an I accept button at our baptism, at our confirmation, just by showing up at church. And having accepted, even though we didn't read all the words, we are expected to take seriously the idea that we should love our enemies. The thought that if someone steals our coat, we should give them our cloak as well. The idea that we should offer respect and dignity and opportunity, even if it doesn't seem to pay off, even if it doesn't make sense. That, in fact, is the way that we will realize the kingdom of God. We are obligated, but we're also empowered. So when we push that I accept button, we agree that we would take seriously these words that we don't understand, but we also agreed that we would accept God's help, that we would be part of the arc of the universe that tends towards justice and to beauty. Even when it doesn't make sense in the real world, we have been invited to change the real world. And we will do that with love, with respect, with dignity and opportunity. That's the message you missed at Jubilee today. And I hope you don't miss next week's, because we'd love to see you. But for now, thank you, and God bless.